All right, thank you everyone for being here. It is June 24th, and we're on Real Talk with Ryan, and I wanted to introduce our very special guest, featured guest, Steve Kroll from Scale Matrix. And Steve, I want to thank you, everyone on the call today, and everyone in the future who's going to see this. I'm excited for what you're going to bring to the table and deliver today as you talk through your story, talk about who you are and what you do. I know there's so much that you bring to the community. We've known each other for a long time, and the way you and I met is just like the funniest thing ever. And we'll leave that in a minute as we get into things, but really excited to have you, and I hope everyone gets something really positive out of this today. So thank you for being here. So I'd like to
Thanks for having me.
start off. Tell everybody on the call who is Steve Kroll, and just give us a brief rundown of what you're working on and what Scale Matrix is, so we get the landscape of who you are and what you're doing right now.
Sure, absolutely. So working as an account executive over at Scale Matrix, and really working with a myriad of clients, anything from RG Alliance to Stone Brewing Company, the San Diego Superior Court, the USS Midway, J. Craig Venter Institute. So the types of companies are very different. I've been doing this about 5 years, specifically with Scale Matrix. And really for the whole gamut of things, business-wise, I got a little intro that I think you'll give me kind of a cue to go into, but outside of, just the work stuff that I've been doing for about 31 years, father of two. I've got my 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old son, Will, and my 8-year-old, almost 9-year-old daughter, Cameron. And then of course, been married to my wife, Erin, for going on 12 years here. And we live up in the great community of Escondido. So yes. I got the Escondido representation here, right, for the little baseball, which is actually my daughter's doing, not softball. We're a female playing baseball, representing Escondido family out here.
Very nice. Thank you for that, Steve. It's always important for us to understand who you are and what you mean to your family and to the community. So one of the things that interests me so much about having you on is you've done a lot of cool things and a lot of different things, and seeing you interact with us as an organization and helping us solve problems, as we're really, from an RG standpoint, we're trying to create different ways of doing things that's unique, not just duplicating what everyone else is already doing, but coming up with unique and innovative ways to solve problems. And you've been a key part of helping us do that. But as I look at your career and know all the many things that you've done, you've had to reinvent yourself a few times and work through different places. And what I'd like to start with is take us through a little bit of some of that reinventing, where you've had to pivot. I've had to pivot in my life a few times where I've had to examine, am I doing what I should be doing, and why? Is this really what I want to do? Am I making a difference? And you've had to go through that process. So I'd love to start there and just talk us through how you've done that, and how you've gotten to where you're at with Scale Matrix now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd like to just start with the word sales. And by the way, if anybody could relate with this short example or story, please let me know. But my wife is a self-proclaimed introvert, and has said many times that she would never be a good salesperson. Now, this is the same person who has walked through the front door with multiple shopping bags, unable to even carry them, and made the statement, "Honey, I saved over $700 today." Now, if you guys do the math, you know how much money you have to spend to save $700? Okay, I don't care who you are. That is the statement of a salesperson. And really this, sales falls into everything. We're all in it to some capacity, regardless of your role. And I mean, I was fortunate to start my sales career at the age of 19 back in 1990. So you guys can do quick math there. But I worked on 100% commission for the first 8 years of really what I call my true career in sales. And that was as an independent contractor. In 1999, myself and a couple friends started a business. So I was a business owner for about 6 years. After that, really played in a more senior executive role for about 10 years. And then I always like to throw this in. I was then on unemployment for 1 year, basically. And then now I've just been an individual contributor for 5 years. And so I give you that summary because I'll give you some of the other background that I think relates to where people would get value. One thing I wanted to say, though, is going back just to the sales thing, I'll never forget my first sale. It took me, from the day I started doing sales calls, it took me 46 consecutive days before I ever got a sale. So, I mean, and by the way, more than one sales presentation a day. So upwards of about 100 sales presentations before I ever made my first sale. Now, I will never claim to be a fast starter in anything, but I typically do catch on over time just through work and perseverance. But I made $168 on that sale. And as a 19-year-old, all I could think of was that I had just made, because the presentation took me about an hour. And all I could think of, it wasn't the 46 previous days of making absolutely no money, driving all over the county. It was that hour I made $168. And I was pretty much hooked just on commission. I was like, and so I started sitting there in my head going, okay, if I can make $168, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm going to be rich. Right. And none of the other stuff in the past mattered at all. It was just the wheels turning on, wow, I can earn this type of money. And, you know, it was fun. It was competitive. And most importantly, it was up to me. So 8 years later, you know, after really having a nice career as an independent contractor, making some good money, learning. Whoa. Sorry, the recording kind of went out there.
Keep going, I got
it. Two of my friends and I decided to start, there's this thing out there, they called me and they said, hey, we want to start this company. And it had to do with this thing called the internet. And I had never really heard of it before. So the three of us in this little 500 square foot office, one computer and a dial-up internet connection, we actually started an internet company. And over the next, gosh, I guess 6 years, that grew to about 200 employees and about 30 million in annual revenue. So we did pretty good. And, you know, I was feeling pretty good about myself. So in 2005, I had a nice little residual going and decided to leave the company. I stayed on the board of directors, but I wanted something just different. And it was the very first time in my career at that point of 15, 16 years that I actually went to go work for somebody else. And again, like I said, I was feeling pretty good about myself. I was pretty hot stuff. So I was like, hey, you know, I'm going to go in and just, you know, do this all over again. So I went to a company that was, you know, less than 20 employees. And again, we grew and, you know, did great. And I had my employment income and my residual and, you know, everything was fantastic. And I was glad that I made that move, although it was kind of interesting going into a new company and working for somebody else. So, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal at the time because, you know, the world was my oyster and I was on fire. And then life happened. And things like, you know, relationships that went awry and the recession hit. And all of a sudden it was, you know, my world was turned upside down. But it's funny because a lot of people will ask, you know, hey, if you had this, you know, $30 million company, why the hell would you leave that? And in my mind, it was, hey, I did that with my buddies. I've really worked at 2 companies in 15 years. What else can I do? What am I actually capable of? And I saw big companies like Google and stuff like that popping up. And I was like, man, could I go work for a really big company? But even though I'd think about that, I would go and find these little startups. And we'd blow up and do pretty well. And, each company I went to, we'd get to 20, 30 million. And that first run at it, though, was a great taste of success actually working for somebody else. But like I said, things just kind of crumbled all around me. And one thing that was super positive, I met a girl. With that girl, we all of a sudden had a kid. Well, we got married, bought a house, things crumbled, and we had a kid. So here I was with my, firstborn child, and I was unemployed for the first time in my adult life. In the past, I had gotten used to having some pretty good money coming in, and really all of a sudden nothing. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And the pivot was not that difficult. I mean, that creates a certain amount of urgency to, I think, anybody. And found another startup. Same thing. We grew it, and we're wildly successful. And then for some reason, I left again. And this is all by choice. Like, hey, what else is out there? Literally going from a company, each time it was less than 10 people or less than 20 people and, thousands of dollars in, company revenue to 20, 30 million, couple hundred employees. And then I would leave. So I thought I was like the startup guy. That's what I thought. And then this happened a couple of times and took me to around, I think, 2015, where I really thought I found the thing. And same thing. We tripled in size within the first 6 months, hired a bunch of executives. And all of a sudden, one day I went in and I was I think the director of sales. And they laid out, we had grown to, I think, 70 people inside of 6 months. And they laid 50 of us off in one day.
Wow.
They had spent too much money. This was a pretty exciting time. The day that layoff occurred, I had not taken a day off in several years, including the transition between, companies, and had not taken really vacations or any of that stuff. And Aaron and I had booked a 5-day, full-blown, all-you-can-handle Disneyland resort vacation with the kids. And we were leaving the next day. So I call Aaron, we're literally leaving the next day, and it's like, honey, I just got laid off. And as far as we knew, everything was going great. And so our 5 days at the happiest place on earth were a little stressful and a little sad. But I sat there and I went, okay, why is this happening? Why do I keep leaving things that are doing really well, except for this time, but this I was in a vulnerable position. And that's when I mentioned earlier, 1 year of unemployment. I mean, don't get me wrong. I jumped on the horse and I think I interviewed with 46 companies over that year,
Wow.
which were, I was aggressive with it. There were some nice, VP of sales and director of sales type offers. But they just didn't appeal to me. And I didn't understand why. And one day I met this gentleman, I'll just say his first name was Lee. And he was actually a hired gun by a company that is pretty well known out here in San Diego. They're actually one of my clients now, which is kind of funny. But he was interviewing me. I think it was for the director of sales position there. And we were talking about it, going through the offer. And this gentleman, who was very well seasoned, looked at me and he said, "Hey, Steve," he goes, "you don't seem very excited about this." And I said, "Lee, I just don't know." And he goes, "All right, off the record, we just got to talk." He goes, what's going on? And we went through a few different things, and he asked me, he said, hey, you know, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm looking for a new challenge, and, you know, this is what I've done. He goes, I know what you've done in the past, but he goes, when's the happiest that you've ever been in your life? And I immediately went all the way back to 1990 when I was my first sales job, and that first sale and how exciting that was, and not having to deal with all the responsibilities of running a company and staffing and HR and just all those decisions. And he just said, you know what? He goes, I think you're very well qualified for the position that I'm offering you. I just don't think you like it. I said, what are you talking about? Of course I do. I love helping people. I love coaching, mentoring, and all that. And he said, no. He said, I think you love just selling. And it was the craziest thought. And in that moment, I said, maybe he's right. And we looked at it, and all the beliefs that I had about myself and my career were kind of just blown up in one segment. I thought I was really into, you know, being in that executive role and all that, and that I just wanted to continue contributing and doing the startup thing, and I liked the growth. But the reality is, when I got to the point where you had to really manage everything, and sure, it wasn't as much work, but it wasn't as exciting anymore. And I sat down and I made a decision. I said, okay, it's not, you know, one of my mentors in the past always said, it's not the what, it's the why. And I'm sure you've all heard that to a certain extent. It's not what are you doing, it's why are you doing it? And in this case, I looked at it in the reverse of why am I leaving these companies that I've helped build and they've become successful. And by the way, all of them except for one are still in business, and some of them have been in business now for, you know, over 20 years. And the why I realized was I didn't like it. I was good at it, but I really liked, what really stimulates me is, you know, things like Real Talk with Ryan or Sage, or these different things where we have mind share and get to brainstorm ideas and things like that. But I don't necessarily want to be responsible for it. And that was a little hard to admit. And it was nice having the, you know, role of owner or title of owner or VP or senior VP or whatever. But we can get over that. And I said, hey, you know what? I really like technology. So I'd like to, you know, look forward to my career there. I love selling. And I've had, you know, thousands of salespeople over the years now that I've trained. And some of these guys would go out there and just, guys and gals would go out and just, they were making a bunch of money. They were working their own schedule. They had time to be the baseball coach or the softball coach or soccer coach, or go to the, you know, Father's Day thing at school, or, you know, whatever. And I was finding myself not being able to do that. And I said, okay, if I can find a job where I can be in technology and create a pipeline and book a business and have my own schedule, but make executive level pay, that would be ideal. Oh, and by the way, not be responsible for anything other than my clients. Right? Sounded pretty good. So I was fortunate enough to find a job with Scale Matrix at the time. One of their top people had left. The CEO and I had an agreement because I was missing the technical part of it. I had the business acumen. But he said, listen, you have all the business chops to do this, but you have none of the technical ability. So I will hire you, but I am not going to help you. You're on your own. And I said, okay, no problem. Well, about 6 weeks in, the quote of, oh, no problem, I realized it was a problem. It was bad. It was humiliating. I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, I'd sit there and speak to people in technology that were light years ahead of me. And it was a little embarrassing for a while there. And I couldn't ask for help. So I had to try and find out everything on my own. And then one day I realized, wow, okay, I might be talking to these technologists who know a lot about, you know, their trade, but the reason the technology exists is for their business. And that I do know a lot about. And so I started turning the tables on the conversation, saying, okay, why is your company asking you to provide this technology solution? And it made me feel a lot more comfortable. And I think I got the respect from their side. And it didn't matter what I didn't know about technology, because I had a bunch of engineers to back me up when I needed it. And from that point forward, you know, I did start learning it, and definitely consider myself a technologist at this point. But it's all wrapped up, and I find myself with the company for 5 years. I got a great book of business, amazing clients, each one, anywhere from, some of them are 5 employees, some of them are 20,000 employees. And, you know, I typically meet with someone in the C-suite or director level, people that have been in business for 20, 30 plus years. And it's always a different challenge, a different solution, and a different conversation. But the nice thing is I get to integrate and be part of their business. And that's what I have found to be my happy place. And I know we have a lot of people that will listen to this and who are part of Real Talk with Ryan, are participating in it because they are business owners. So you might want to not just hear from the sales guy, but I'm sure you've all had that time in your career where you're trying to run your business or lead people and just going, man, I don't know if I can do this. You hit a hiccup and you go, wow, I have to get over that. Well, those are exciting times. And, you know, you might sit there and think of, you know, quitting or giving up. And not that that's what for a while there, that's what I thought I was doing, Ryan, was just giving up on it. But I realized, no, I'm trying to, you know, highest and best use and purpose. And where I found I was really best.
Let's dig on that. Let's dig on that for a second, because that's really interesting to me. And I think it will be to everyone else. This is Real Talk with Ryan. We're here with our featured guest, Steve Kroll from Scale Matrix. And if anyone has questions, love to have you just text them into the chat box. I'll work them in. At the end, we'll open it up to voice questions. If anyone wants to just talk, we'll stop recording and you can talk live after that. But Steve, I appreciate you taking us through that story, because there's 2 things that really stood out to me. Is you go on a path and a journey through your life, and you're constantly running into learning things you don't want to do. And sometimes you get pushed into categories that you're like, how did I get here? And you have to assess. And a couple things have to happen. You have to reinvent yourself in some degree and have the perseverance to get through it. So I have 2 questions. If you could just take us briefly through each of those items. The first one is, how do you find the motivation to persevere? You know, what is that one thing and that key item that drives you to say, I've got to keep going? And the second question is, you talked about Lee. And as we've talked to our previous guests, whether it's Nathan or Renee or Sean, who've talked about, hey, I've got these mentors that have helped me. You found people who gave you really good advice and you listened. How did you select those kinds of people? So just highlight, what's the motivation that helps you persevere, and how did you select the people that gave you that advice to help you?
Yeah. As far as persevering, I mean, of course, you know, for those of us that are blessed to have, you know, families, whether it be your spouse, you know, or children, it's pretty difficult to wake up and go, hey, daddy doesn't know what to do, right? I mean, that's a motivation, you know, all in itself that will drive you. Other than that, though, I think if you're motivated enough to even be on this call, it's because you're a motivated person, right? To take your time out, to listen to somebody you don't know. You're obviously reaching for something you want to learn, right? And it's because you want to get better. So everybody on this call is competitive and likes to win. How you win is a different story, and the reasons that you win, right? But it's, you know, it's our self-worth. It's, you know, there's no participation medals, right, in life.
Absolutely.
That are worth anything.
And we're going to dig on that piece, that purpose piece about why and how you win. I think every single person we've had on, as they've talked about this purpose in their business, purpose in their behavior, and this goal of I'm here not just to sell a product, but to elevate the community and solve problems. So I want to dig on the purpose in a moment, but as you think about those mentors you've selected, how did you identify who the right person to talk to? Because you can go a long way talking to the wrong people.
Yep, you can. It's two things. One, I've been super fortunate to have just been involved with just some fantastic people who've been mentors to me over the years. And not everyone has that, has had that opportunity, or no, that's not true. Not everybody has been lucky enough to have that. But as we all know, it's not about just luck, right? It's choices that you make in your life. And it's, if you find yourself in a toxic environment or a toxic relationship, having the wherewithal to go, hey, let me make the right choice here and get rid of that, right? And surround yourself by good, solid people. And I think in your gut, Ryan, it really comes down to meeting somebody and for lack of better terms, getting the warm fuzzy. It's going, hey, this person makes me feel good about myself or motivates me. For me, a big part of it is, for one reason or another, I can trust this person, right? And have I been led astray at times? Yes, but that's when you cut the cord. But for the most part, it's, is that person transparent with me? Do I feel like they're looking out for my best interest? And, in turn, do we do that for other people? It's exciting as heck to mentor somebody. And, after over 30 years of doing this stuff and the relationships that I've had in the business community, it's fun to get a call from somebody I gave their first sales job to 25 years ago who, found me on LinkedIn or Facebook or, whatever. And they tell me about their family and how that first experience helped them, or, even seasoned people who you helped get out of a rut. But you've got to look for, hey, who are the people that are valuable? And it's funny because a lot of people are shy to approach, or maybe not humble enough to approach somebody and ask for help. And that includes people on this phone. There's people on this call who probably have met somebody and been like, well, hey, maybe I should talk to that person a little bit more. But they don't take the time to reach out. They don't think that person will want to help them. But we all know that, helping someone is one of the most gratifying things that you can do. So, I just want to promote, have at it, reach out. It's a huge compliment to people. And if they don't take it as such or provide the time, then, hey, maybe they're just too busy or they're not the right person. Right. But that's where I've been lucky.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Steve, for sharing. We all have to make those challenging decisions about who to listen to. And I've worked with some clients who listen to everybody, and it in some ways is almost paralyzes their direction. So it's exciting that you've found some of those people that have given you direction. When you think about, you talked about selling and you talked about finding a product. And one thing that's always interested me so much in your approach is, and we talked about it a little bit. We've had Renee from Pay It Forward Processing, and Nathan from Culture Insurance, and Sean from Managed Solutions, and Cassandra from Sip Wine and Beer. We've had amazing guests on the show so far who've talked about what's really generally basic services that don't sound that interesting necessarily, but they've taken those and they use that to solve people's problems and elevate the community. How do you take in your process, and how do you take when you meet people hey, we provide cloud-based computing solutions for businesses, for data storage, for security, for all these things that Scale Matrix does. That's a thing. That's a commodity you sell. But how do you take that and do something bigger and be bigger than just the service you sell, but actually what it is you do to solve people's problems and enhance the quality of their life with it?
It's you take an interest in their business. Commodity or not, technology is sexy, so that there's a little bit of a thing there. People who understand it love it and love to talk about it. People who don't understand it, if you approach them the right way, are happy to learn. But more than anything, again, it comes down to the why. The reason technology exists as a solution is because it's what makes businesses work now, for the most part. So taking an interest in their business of, hey, what are you doing? How are you looking to grow? From staffing to, vertical markets, and getting into those kind of conversations and letting them know, hey, here's a client that I have that I've had a similar conversation with. Here's a solution that we provided them, and here's how it impacted not only their business, but made their job way easier, right? You're doing, without the proper technology, anybody running a business is wasting like physical effort on things that they don't need to anymore. It might cost them a little bit, but they're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies by not investing in their infrastructure or technology, where they can save so much time, have way better communications with people, their employees, their clients. That's a pretty simple one.
What do you do, when you think about you and how you exist? You talked about, a little bit, you used the words why, and you used about finding what you love to do or finding what you should be doing and not what you shouldn't be doing. And so I want to draw on those in a couple ways. And when you talked about that, and I discover that why, and you have that enlightenment, right? That opens your eyes and says, wow, I really probably should have been doing this a long time. Sometimes it takes a long path to do those things before you realize why what you love is important on how you drive through your career and what's in front of you. And when you define that why, a lot of times from failure, you learn a lot about yourself. Share with us, if you would, what's one of the key things that you learned about you through some of those failures or through some of those changes that you can share with us, and how that changed you and made you better?
I am absolutely committed to a fault. That was a recurring, that's been a recurring theme, I think, throughout my career. Not the worst thing in the world, by the way, but just having blinders on and just going, okay, I'm committed to what I'm doing in my company, and that sort of thing, and not even looking at the things around me. And that as I listen to myself say that, it sounds a little confusing. I was not open to opportunities and other things around me. And I don't mean just jumping ship and taking another job. I just mean listening to other people's ideas. It was more about, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is my process. I've always been, I think a foundation of my career has been built on having scalable systems and really operationally, creating a template basically for how things should be done. But I think I got to a point in my career where A, that was boring. B, I was getting stuck in a rut because I was like, this is the system. This is how it has to work. And when I realized that, you don't have to be that stringent on things. I mean, you have to have a process, but it's also about constant and never-ending improvement. That process is always going to get better. There is always a better mousetrap. And when I opened my eyes to that, it felt more comforting. But what I realized, again, my big why is I just like being stimulated. And for me, my role, is the best of all worlds. I mean, I get to be involved in so many different businesses and have so many different conversations about where they're going, how they're trying to get there. And of course, the side benefit is that I can help. And I guess there's two things, Ryan, that I want to throw out there. One of them is I was very specific about technology being the thing I wanted to do, even though I had no idea how to do it or understanding of it. But really, at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. It's about being excited about what I'm doing and having those conversations and being able to be involved in the businesses. And that's why what I'm doing now is what I plan on doing, for the next 10 years and then just being done. I blanked on the other thing. The other thing that was interesting was, after so many years as an executive and telling people what to do and delegating, going into an individual contributor role was actually scary as hell. because I hadn't just done a sale on my own in 10, 15 years, right? And at the age of 45 or 46 or whatever it was, going, oh, okay, I'm going to eat what I kill and pretty much be on commission for the most part. I can make a lot of money if I do it right. But, not having picked up the phone literally and made a, full on just sales call in so many years, telling people to do it's one thing. Doing it again was a little scary. And it took a while to get back, it wasn't, you'll say, hey, it's like riding a bike. No, I had to crash several times again and go through that whole process. But, your brain and that skill does have muscle memory as well, right? So it does come back. One of the greatest benefits, though, was going from the level of operations and seeing how a company runs and being able to have those types of conversations with my clients, not just being a sales guy, but knowing operationally, how it affects business, but also looking now at being an employee. I mean, it's a totally different thing. I could give so many insights to what your employees are thinking now, because that's the role I am. I stay in my lane and other people run the company. I have influence where I can, as a top. It's funny to look at things now and evaluate, wow, I would do that differently if I were running the company, and being able to, provide that kind of feedback. So it's interesting. And the biggest thing that, and I actually wrote this down, so I want to make sure I didn't forget it, was if your people trust you, you're going to get way more leverage and mileage out of, what they can actually accomplish. Because once you become that guy or gal who doesn't respond to their questions or blows them off one too many times, even if you're busy, right, you lose their trust. And guess what? They start making up their own rumors about what's happening in the company. And I know as an employee, I've done it.
Yeah. I like where you're taking that, because, one of the themes that we've talked about in the series has been this purpose-driven business. And I was on a call earlier today, and they talked about the idea of it was a not-for-profit business, and she changed the language around and she called it a for-purpose business. That okay. It's not just that we're not trying to make a profit and do good, but we're really trying to serve a purpose. We're trying to serve the community in a meaningful way. And the idea was that every business should really be in some format a for-purpose business, especially now as there's so much noise going on around different causes and different needs for people to feel connected and for the community to be elevated. That as business owners, as business service providers, as we elevate and support each other and try to stay connected in this disconnected format and environment, that we have to be bigger than just the product we sell or the service we offer. And so I'd love to hear, and I know the guests would love to hear about what is that purpose for you? And it doesn't have to be even the scale matrix purpose, but what is that purpose for you that you want to deliver to elevate the community and make a difference beyond just the service that's provided?
Sure. Well, I mean, these strange times that we're in, we'll just call them COVID times, right? Make that kind of an easy thing. I mean, the first few weeks, I couldn't of this going on in March. I don't think I could be more proud of what I am doing from a business perspective. I have at least 5 clients that I could list off that literally, if we had not stepped in, to help them those first couple of weeks, they would have just gone out of business. And that's just a great feeling. But regardless of that, and we've had some pretty good success over the last couple of months here, where a lot of companies have been either going out of business or struggling or really needing to pivot. We've just had to emphasize what we do and pay a little bit more attention to the support factor. This whole thing has elevated our business and what we do as a company to realize, hey, we actually do make a big difference to our clients. And So, you know, that, again, that really is relating to our product and our business and what we do. But I'm fortunate that we're in the position where that is the, you know, the warm fuzzy, you know, of it. As far as purpose, you know, it's always, and this is a selfish purpose, but I think it does good for everybody. And that's, you know, I love having clients that grow, and anything I can do to help them grow. You know, they're going to spend more money as they grow. The more they spend, probably the better they're doing. It's kind of related, and that's a good thing for everybody. But it's also just fun, right? To be able to tell the stories of these different companies and what they're doing. You know, not just using our technology, but just out in the world. You know, I mean, some companies are out there and they're absolutely purpose driven. I would like to say that, you know, all companies are purpose driven, or else you wouldn't have the company, right? You have to have, you know, if you have a product, you have a purpose. It serves some sort of a need. Whether it's, you know, there's companies out there, right, that have silly products, and what they provide is maybe laughter, right? You know, if you were a company making toilet paper, you know, there's a need. There was a big need, right? You know, a couple of months ago. It all comes into play. So I love that you're driving on the purpose theme, Ryan. For me, it's just a matter of, hey, what can you do to influence and drive the business and grow? And not everybody has that opportunity, but you know, when I see Ryan Satoff in New York, you know, at the stock exchange, you know, on TV, that's pretty cool. To go, that dude's my client, right? You know, I mean, little things like that are awesome and drive you every day. And you know, and I'd be it wouldn't be fair if I didn't say that I've used that story a few times. Hey, let me tell you about this one client. They started with us. They were this small. They've grown. They've acquired these companies. Hey, the guy was on the stock market, you know, stock exchange. I mean, I use all those stories, and they're fun to tell. And you can see people light up and just go, man, I want to be that guy. Even if they're 10 times the size, they want to be, you know, 10 times bigger than they are now. Right. And just, so again, the technology part of it aside, it's just seeing those businesses grow and really having that purpose and feeling like I'm a part of it. Right.
Nathan, in the show yet last week, he talked about one of the taglines that I thought resonated really well with everybody, was this love people idea. And that,
yeah.
You know, you mentioned it several times about taking an interest in them, taking an interest in their business, taking an interest in them personally, and wanting to deliver something that enhances the quality of their life, their job, whatever that is. And he used that word love people. And I've heard that as a theme that you've resonated in all the way from the beginning of your career. I'm interested in something you said at the very, very beginning, and I'd like to close with this question, and we'll open up for live questions. This is Ryan, Real Talk with Ryan, and our special guest is Steve Kroll from Scale Matrix. You talked about this exciting feeling of that first sale and how hard it was to get there. And in that moment, you forget how hard it was to get there. And all of us face these really difficult challenges. And in the moment of success, it's easy to forget those that helped us. It's easy to forget those that contributed. And it's easy to forget how hard we worked. And it just looks easy in the moment. And all of us know that it's not. But what in your think about as a family, think about in the business so far, talk us through that next big win, right? That thing that, hey, I remember that feeling. I've seen that feeling from something completely different, but something else in your life, whether it's a family win or a personal win or something that you've been able to duplicate that. Because it's not just about the sale, but it's about something you feel, wow, I've got that accomplishment and this is what I did to get there. So take us through that as we close, then we'll open up for questions for anyone who has any.
Yeah, man, you know, one of the things that you mentioned, or kind of the theme, I think, of this was reinventing yourself. And, you know, having gone through it a couple times and having the realization of what I was really meant to do here, and, you know, with what I'm doing at Scale Matrix, not so much the job, but how I'm influencing people and really how much I'm enjoying it, right, has given me a certain level of confidence from a career perspective, comfort level for how I can provide for my family, my wife, my children, our children, where I know that, I mean, the world could fall flat on its face and I could do it again. I've done it a couple times, and I mean, that's just a huge win, where, you know, I know I can tell that story in, you know, analogy in sports. I can tell it to my kids when they're going through school. I can use it in relationships. You know, we've all been through that once, twice, maybe several times, right? The love of your life is gone. Now what? The world has crumbled. But guess what? We're all still here today. And not that, you know, what I have realized is that I'm not startup guy. I don't want to start over every time, but I have the confidence that I can. And I think as long as everybody knows that, or can find that confidence in themselves, you know, everything's going to be okay. And I think that's if you're going to take anything away from this, it's, hey, if you persevere, you know, enough and believe in yourself enough, even if you have to fake it for a little bit, everything's going to be okay. And, you know, you have the strength to do it, even if you need help from other people, you know, and reach out. And that's what I've done. And I'm very blessed to have, you know, so many people in the community, personal friends and business associates that I know through what I've gone through over the years that I could always reach out to if I needed that extra help. And in turn, you know, happy to help them through it as well. So again, that's kind of the big thing I think I would say, Ryan, is it's going to be okay.
Thank you, Steve. We are blessed to have you as our guest today. We are grateful for all the work that you've done to help innovate with our team at RG and what contribution your firm has made. I appreciate what you've done personally, as you and I know each other personally, and how your family contributes to the school, the community, and to those around you. Hearing your story about going through that reinvention over and over demonstrates, you know, that perseverance that we all admire. And we know that you'd be there for us if we had questions. So Steve, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing and being open about your story. And we can't wait to see what's next for Steve and for Scale Matrix. Thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate it. And now I'm going to stop the recording and open up for questions. All right. Thank you, Steve. Does anyone have any questions?
Absolutely.
I'm going to unmute everybody.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, Angela.
Hi, how are you? I was
I'm
wondering,